Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 64th Cybersecurity Awareness Forum panel session. Do you wish you could do professional networking in a way that isn't creepy, but adds value to your cybersecurity career and to the industry? Well, in this session, we're going to explore how cybersecurity professionals network effectively, not technical networking, business networking. I'm Scott Wright, the CEO of ClickArmor and Chief Engagement Officer, and your host for today. And the sessions are brought to you by ClickArmor, the employee cyber confidence builder, a gamified learning platform for cybersecurity. Our panel is ready to go, and I'm going to introduce them in a moment, or I'll have each of them introduce themselves in 30 seconds or so. And just letting people in the chat know that we're going to do a roll call as well, and where you're coming from around the world. Panelists, get ready to do an intro, and I'll just do the round table. So we've got Frederick from Victoria, British Columbia, Fleetus from North Carolina, Dustin from Colorado, I think it is. CO, wherever that is.
CEO. Yeah.
Greg from London. Cool. Uh, Arnold from Prince Albert and Mitchell from Columbia. James, welcome, James, from Toronto. And Thea from Norway, of course. Vidya from Toronto. Zaid from Bay Area. Awesome. And also, Shamila, who was in our last couple of sessions, was going to join the panel, but she sends her regrets. It's unfortunate she couldn't join us from Turkey. It would have been a great international panel, but we've got Thea here and a couple of others, I think, to represent people outside North America. So that's great. Um, I'm going to just do a quick intro on our topic today. Then we are actually going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to launch a poll right away that has six questions in it. It's around networking and just to get an idea of how people view networking within our cybersecurity space. So I'm going to launch that right now, and we'll see how many people get through that, and we'll go through what the questions and answers are in the session at the end later. But with that in mind, I want to start by doing an intro for each of our panelists. I'll go Theo, Fleetus, Mitchell, and Dustin. So, Thea, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Thea Mannix. I am technically on paper a neuroscientist, but I've been working in research in human risk management now for 5 years. And I'm currently the director of research at Praxis Security Labs.
Excellent. Thanks, Thea. Theo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Theo Zafiragos, information security professional and seasoned introvert. I'm an independent consulting practice. I advise cybersecurity teams, CISOs on building cybersecurity cultures and fostering cybersecurity awareness within the organizations.
Excellent. Thanks, Theo. Fleetus.
So Blues Poston, been around these pretty much since the beginning, so I was glad to finally be able to make it back again. I'm a 20-year industry professional, currently serving as the director of security architecture and system architecture for a 3D printing company based in South Carolina. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Welcome. Welcome back, of course. You've been here many times, but Mitchell.
Good afternoon. I'm Mitch Kowalski. I've been in the cybersecurity GRC industry for about 20 years or so. Currently looking for my next opportunity. I'm probably going to present a bunch of cautionary tales on how networking doesn't work. That's what I'll bring to the table today.
That's awesome. Lessons learned. We'll put it in that category. And Dustin, last but not least.
Yep. Hey, everyone. I was a software engineer for over a decade, and then I got into cyber through AppSec. So I've actually led AppSec teams at multiple companies at this point. Today, I do a lot of consulting, sort of thought leadership. I'm an advocate for a couple of companies out there, cybersecurity companies. And I co-founded a company as well that focuses on security champions. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, panelists, and thank you everybody for joining. What I'm going to do to start with is a little bit of a serious note. One of the reasons I chose networking, it's certainly always relevant. It's not core to our usual cybersecurity awareness discussions, but I think networking is an important aspect of what we do as professionals in cybersecurity. So I wanted to just spend some time focusing on it, and it came to mind when a mentor of mine passed away recently. His name was Michael Hughes here in Ottawa, and he was well into his 70s, 75, and I've known him for about 10 years, and he was one of the guys that really taught me about just being authentic and trying to make sure that relationships are more than just building up, how many connections I have. It's the quality of the relationships rather than the number of them. So I just wanted to put this out there and remember Michael. One of his favorite phrases was the true purpose and power of networking lies in its ability to act as a relationship ignition point and not as a sales or prospecting activity, which I'm sure a lot of us see on firsthand every day. But just wanted to do a little shout out to Michael on that. So just a couple of thoughts from me about why networking is important for cybersecurity professionals, and I'll let the panelists dive in on this as well as our first open question. But feel free to put up your hand anytime, panelists. As I'm speaking, we can get to your comments right away. We don't have to go through all my slides right away either. So just wanted to have a starting point. So the important parts of networking for cybersecurity professionals would be for developing career opportunities. I think a lot of people use it for job hunting, but also it's valuable for finding resources that you may need at some point in your job to get things done and to find out ways that maybe others in your organization can connect with the people they need to get things done. It's also good for building your personal brand for your career. You're not likely to be in the same job for 20, 30 years. So it's helpful to have some visibility and credibility that you can start building through a network. And then you can also use it to learn about emerging trends, stay in touch with people, and actually find out more. The more good relationships you have in the area that you want to focus on, that's a strategic decision from your point of view. You can start to focus on just keeping up to date with the things that are important for your career and your personal values. And then finally, I like to think of it as a way of contributing to the industry. So um, people will trust you more. They will share more with you if they see that you are able to provide, some value as well to them and that you care about them. So contributing to the industry is really important. It's not a one-way street. So those are a few main points I wanted to bring up. There are different styles of networking personally. There are people who are very extroverted. They're energized by meeting new people. And there are introverts where people prefer just to have one-to-one quiet relationships with people and not be too visible. And that can work still too, but it depends on what your goals are and how you go about it. There are people who build sort of close-knit groups that are socially connected. And then there are the people who connect broader groups of people overall that can really help bring value to a wide range of people within the network. And beyond that, the expansionist area where you can have lots of different ways to connect with people. Finally, I'll just point out, the different places where you can network. Obviously, you can go to the live conferences like DEF CON and B-Sides and even local meetups. There are often cybersecurity meetup groups within your locale. And anybody's welcome to put in the chat where you like to meet up offline. But certainly LinkedIn is one way that I've made a lot of use of building very valuable connections and professional relationships. And the roundtable discussions that we have here are certainly a good place to start. And I'll make a quick announcement at the end about our community and how you can use that for networking as well. So all that to say, I think we've got a good start for networking. Happy to hear how people view these different aspects of networking. I posted this poll on LinkedIn late last week, I think, and got some interesting results. Not a lot of people participated, but it was interesting to see a lot of people have the biggest challenge in keeping connections active. What does that mean? I mean, there's a cycle that you go through, right? You decide you're going to connect with somebody, or maybe you have an idea. Maybe you don't. Maybe you go to live events and just say, I'm going to meet people and see what value I can get. But there's also a strategy to saying, who you'd like to meet if you know somebody's going to get there going to be at a session, and you'd like to be able to meet them in person. And so there are ways to do that. But once you've made that connection, you have to follow up. You have to keep it sort of somewhat active, because if you ever want to get help from that person, it's good to have kept some loose connection with them over time. So that's something that I think is going to be a challenge, and something that we can actually help people in this call do. So one comment on this one was a little bit cynical, though, saying that they really only saw networking as a big sort of game for people to kind of gather numbers, but I don't think that's really what we want to get at. So I'm going to leave it at that, and then go to our poll. As I mentioned, I'm not going to actually go into it right now. We'll go into the questions a little bit later. But if the panelists don't have any comments on what we've already discussed, I'll just open up the first question, which is, how can introverted cybersecurity professionals overcome networking challenges and engage meaningfully? So I said I'm not going to pick people, but does anybody have a desire to go first? There's Fleetus. All right. And then Theo.
Unmuted now. There I can go. Not introverted, as many of you probably can tell, but I work very closely with introverts. It's something that many of my family members are. So just helping them, meeting them where they're at. So part of the thing is, like you talked about in your previous slide, is understanding what their interests are in that one-on-one conversation and making intentional introductions. So is it through an email? Is it through a Slack, a Discord, inviting them into a community where they can engage as they feel fit? It could be sliding into someone's DM on one of these platforms. It could be physically introducing them through a text thread and allowing them to ask targeted questions to help break the film. I met with someone yesterday very similar to this during my mentorships programs that I do, and he shared, I would have never been able to ask that question in a large group, but I'm able to do it in a small group. So thank you. So the fact that I was able to meet him where he was comfortable is what started the conversation. And now he's built up some courage. He's gone to some local meetups, such as a B-side. He's very active here in the Charlotte community now because we started with that one-on-one conversation to build the confidence. Yes, he's drained. He tells me, he says, I've got an hour and then I'm out of here. I get 1 hour, help me meet who I need to meet, help me interact who I need to interact with, and then I'm going to go sit in the corner, enjoy my meal, eat my snacks, and then I'm probably going to slide out, and I may or may not say goodbye to you. That's okay, as long as you understand. And I love Thea's point on this too, from the neurological side. It's important to help them with those triggers and understanding this is my capability at this point in time. It may not always be my capability, but this is my capability today. Tomorrow may be different.
Yeah, great points. Theo.
Start with networking within your organization, because even there it could benefit you with your colleagues and peers. It's vital to network across different departments, maybe development, legal, marketing. That will help you practice your skills with people you're familiar with, but also it will help you succeed within your organization. You don't have to have a formal working relationship with someone within your organization to start networking with them. That would allow people to get to know you, to trust you. They may come to you with questions earlier than later when there's a new security initiative, project, or incident. And it will help you practice those skills. When attending social or events or conferences, try to go with someone that you know, or try to meet someone that you already know, so you're not alone. Because when you're alone, you tend to be more uncomfortable. You tend to hide behind your computer or leave early, which is okay. But if you're there with someone you know, or reach out to your colleagues, see who's going to this event, meet up with them, and attend sessions with them, you'll have the opportunity to meet other people as well, because they may introduce you to additional people. So that also helps overcome some of those anxieties when going to webinars and conferences.
Yeah, great ideas, Theo. I can't remember who's next, but let's go with Thea.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, so you're absolutely completely agree with Fleetus about what he was saying. I personally, in-person conferences are my absolute worst nightmare, even though I speak at them regularly. Very, very difficult for me because they are so energy consuming. And like Peter said, that's okay. You've got to work with the tools that you have. But one of the ways that I managed to get over that was that I redefined what networking was in my head. So I don't call it networking because my brain hears networking and it has a little panic attack. The other thing that I did was teach myself that, okay, if I've tried to start a conversation, not gone very well, that's okay. Move on, right? So
Hmm.
oftentimes they're very nervous about what's the consequence. And sometimes people are having a really bad day and you get there at the wrong time and it's just a very unpleasant situation. But that's okay. Get out and move on. And that's the main thing. If you do have a bad experience or your introversion is because you've had bad social experiences, the more you do it, the easier it gets. For sure. So absolutely just push through as much as you can. And the more things like, for example, being able to come on here and speak with you, Scott, and you're a really clever panelist that you have on here. That's really good practice for me to, actually, and then think about what you get out of it as well, because a lot of these people, it's not just about what do they think of you, it's about exchanging information, it's about connecting with people who have different skills and knowledge than you do. There's a lot of growth in there as well. So real focus on the benefits and move on very quickly if it's not gone very well for you.
Yeah, great thoughts, Thea. And from my experience, the vast majority of people in the cybersecurity industry are just wanting to be helpful. And I think it's it's fair to be scared to reach out to people, but I encourage people just to take the chance, as long as that you're not being overtly rude or trying to sell something. And people these days, it's happening so much, especially with senior executives, that people are getting bombarded with, networking requests or connection requests, and then the first thing somebody does is ask you for, an opportunity to sell something, and that's not the way to go about it. But if you're going about it authentically, just saying, I'm just trying to build my network and would love to, share ideas with you. Um, Most cybersecurity professionals that I know would connect with you that way. So just great ideas. Dustin.
First of all, Thea, did you mention what you do call networking? If you don't call it networking, I'd be curious.
I call them meet and greets.
Meet and
That's what I
greets.
decided to call them,
Okay,
meet and greets. So it's
got
quick,
it.
quick and sharp. Meet, greet, leave. It's fine. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so as I mentioned in the intro, I was a software engineer for over a decade. Okay, software engineers don't like to talk to people. It's, it's not productive. Yeah, I'm trying to work here. Leave me alone. This was a little bit of my approach in general. And then when I got into cyber, especially when I started leading AppSec, the whole networking meet and greet approach became just so important, right? To influence what I needed to influence across the organization. So, a couple of tips that I've learned along the way. I think definitely take some time to find people who you respect or who you have something in common with or who you uh, like, right? Or even follow. I think some of the intimidation with networking might be around, you know, I I don't know this person, I don't know anything that they're doing, as opposed to taking the time to almost filter, right, for folks that you are interested in. Like if you get excited about the idea of talking to someone that you admire, I think a lot of those barriers start to go away a little bit, right? Plus you have something in common with them, and that just makes the whole thing a lot easier. I also think, putting yourself out there is sort of the phrase to use, but being awkward while you do it is fine, right? Like you're sitting next to someone at a conference and you're just kind of like, hey, and you don't really know what to say. And I think that that's totally fine because it's awkward for them too. And you should just embrace the awkwardness of the whole thing. Um, Networking, I think, is just a skill to learn over time as well. The more that you practice it, the better that you're going to get. And then the other thing I would encourage here is the fact that networking is contagious, right? Meaning, if you do find that person that you're interested in and you do reach out to them and you have a nice conversation, they might recommend someone else, right, that you could connect with. Or this has come up so many times for me, hey, you seem to be interested in this. Have you heard of this person? You might want to connect with them as well. So I would just encourage everyone to follow those leads right? Like anytime you hear of someone else that someone recommends that you connect with them, right? And just build that network over time in a way that's almost organic. So that those would be kind of the quick hit um, pieces of advice that I would give.
Very nice. Theo.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick comment based on what Dustin said was that you don't have to ask questions just related to cybersecurity or the project that they work on or what keeps them up at night. That's a typical. If you want to create a more meaningful and personal connection, you could ask them such questions such as, what got you into cybersecurity? What kept you interested in cybersecurity? And that allows you to create a more personal connection with the individual.
Really good point, Theo. And I was just going to add, as I've actually been reading several books about networking as well recently, just coincidentally, and one of them was, pointing out the importance of the small talk part of it. And it's just something that Michael Hughes taught me a long time ago too, and that is you should do what you can to make the first encounter with somebody less stressful for them, because networking a lot of times is stressful for both people. They don't know whether you're going to be pitching something or whatever. So, like Theo said, just come up with something that is harmless and that you can just start a conversation with. So, how did you get in that position that you're in now? That kind of thing is helpful from a career point of view, just to know what it took for that person to get there. And it's a harmless kind of question for people. Makes sense. Dustin, do you have your hand up still? Is that you have more to say?
Oh, sorry. No, well, I have a lot more to say, but
Feel free.
I'll
Just
lower it for now. Well,
okay.
I was just going to mention asking questions, right? I think people feel comfortable talking about something that they know, which
Hmm.
is themselves in a lot of cases. So the
Yeah,
more opportunities you can give them to just share more about themselves, I think that really breaks the ice.
makes sense. And Thea.
Yeah, I just thought I'd add that one thing that I found really cool and beneficial that I would do when I wanted to reach out to someone. So I would connect with them and then I would try and give them something that I think they might find useful and say, oh, this made me think of you. And then that might be either a research paper or a research article that is very related to what they're doing. Now, I don't do that in a fake way. I think being genuine is absolutely essential. So I don't just make something up. Uh, but in a way, when you've started out with giving them something and you've not asked them for anything back, it sets that tone
Hmm.
with them. So thank you. I really appreciate your work and I really enjoy following you. By the way, I just thought that you might find this interesting. So that's been quite successful for me.
That's a really good way to sort of add value immediately for people. Fleetus.
Yeah, just to quickly reiterate that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times it's just, hey, I enjoyed this nugget from your talk or your demeanor when you were talking with that person. Sometimes, because you got to remember, like, when we're in the field, especially as those who are on panels who are speaking, we're in a fishbowl at that point in time. You don't know who's watching you, you don't know what they're taking away. So some people are going to walk up and say, hey, I appreciate that you just shook that person's hand, that you gave them eye contact when you talked with them, that you said thank you. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans. Some of us have massive followers. Some of us have done big talks at big conferences. But at the end of the day, you should be able to approach me as a fellow professional or just as a human being. And I should be receptive of, hey, you like my shirt today. Hey, what is that company you're wearing? And I shouldn't be offended by that. Or because you didn't immediately ask me about my talk. You asked me about something personal. Or how do you take your coffee? Maybe they're willing to go get you a cup of coffee or they're going to bring you a cup of coffee. It could be something as simple as just a gesture to everyone's panel of it doesn't have to be cyber. It can say just thank you for being you. Like
Hmm.
a simple compliment of thank you just for being genuine and approachable and welcoming goes a long way in networking.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitch.
No, I was thinking, everybody's talking about making that true connection and being genuine. I think I struggle with how do I want to sound genuine? How do I come across to ensure that I'm being genuine, right? If I'm sitting across a table from somebody at a conference that I don't know, right, but I want to know, or I feel like I should get to know,
Hmm.
it's that initial conversation. Like once you get past that initial, like, hi, how are you doing? I'm Mitch. What are you doing? That kind of thing. You get
Hmm.
toward that awkwardness, then everything sort of seems to flow fine. But it is getting past that and sort of still feeling genuine in your introduction, right? In your meeting.
Yeah.
And that is something that I know I struggle with, right? When I'm meeting somebody and figure it out, all right, how do we want to do this introduction and how do we get past that so that we can be like, all right, well, let's talk about just what's going on.
Sometimes I've found the best way to be genuine is to be genuine, right? You just go up and say, I'm kind of nervous about approaching you because, I've heard so much about you and I value so much of what you've done, etc. Right? Just stating that you're nervous about it gets them off, their own stress level because they're just saying, this person's not trying to attack me. They just want some
Right.
help. So that can help. Dustin, one more
Yeah,
thing.
yep, this is kind of just going into what I was talking about before about embracing your awkwardness. Just be awkward, right? Just go up to them and be awkward. Okay, it's fine. It's a good way to start the conversation anyway. And then I just had a quick comment on something that Thea said that I liked, and that's try to share something of value. But I think it's also very important before you do that to understand more about them so you can accurately share something that would be of value with them, right? Because it is a little awkward to just sort of throw something at them when you don't know anything about them and they're kind of like, how do you know that I would like this, right? So ask a few questions, start to get to know them a little bit more, and then maybe you can share a resource that's relevant.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying I once heard. I think it was in a sales seminar. Don't spill your candy in the lobby, meaning like don't just come and. Sometimes I say show up and throw up, right? But I like spilling your candy in the lobby. Basically, you want to give value, but all of a sudden people see that as being a potential threat as well. So I really like your idea, Dustin, of just the most you can actually the best way I find before you give value is to do a bit of research on the people that you actually want to connect with. Rather than, maybe you can't in a conference where you're just randomly meeting people, but if you know who you're meeting and you've done a little bit of research, even for a few minutes ahead of time, and you know some of their accomplishments, you can say stuff, hey, I saw your LinkedIn profile the other day, and do you know what struck me the most about what you've done? All of a sudden they're going, what did I do? And it kind of breaks the ice a bit. So really good ideas, but definitely once you've sort of identified something that you value in that person, um, once you mention that, then they will be much more open, I think, to receiving, a link or some bit of information or something that you'd like to share with them. Cool. All right. Well, we spent a lot of time on this one. It's great. I was not sure if we'd have enough to talk about in this session, but let's go to question number 2. What ethical pitfalls should be avoided when using LinkedIn, Twitter, and other platforms for professional connection? We've talked a little bit about some of the risks of, being too aggressive, but, are there specific ethical things? Thea probably I can think of probably has a few ideas here on things that could be a risk that you really should consider before you start reaching out to people. So, Thea, can I call on you to make the first comment?
Yeah, you can. This is my question that I got very excited about because I thought it was very interesting. So there are a few things that probably everyone else was going to say. Do not share sensitive information with them. Do not try and bond with them over some secret story about some incident that you've had. Those kind of things. I think it doesn't make you look trustworthy, and that is the just absolute bread and butter of being in this industry. And I think that has actually happened with me a few times, particularly at conferences and particularly after you've had a glass of wine. So you need to be very conscious. Particularly introverts tend to like to, sort of have a few what they call not raw dog it, I think that's what they call it, right? But you've got to be very careful about that. I think also there's that some people I've noticed, particularly on LinkedIn, kind of farm engagement with FUD in the way that a lot of salespeople will do. So they'll tell kind of stories which are kind of naming and shaming other people, or they might be, sort of looking for reactions from followers, and then that will sort of get a lot of engagement on their post, and then they use that to grow their network. Um, but when you're doing things like that, people, that's not a genuine connection. That's just entertainment. That is not the same thing. Um, and I definitely think as well, it's much more important to have high quality connections rather than sort of this just widespread number of followers that you have as well. It's not actually that useful, really, other than for your ego. So I don't think that's very good. But that's very ethical. And do not misrepresent yourself as much as possible. Um, yeah. So those would be kind of my top three. It's probably, I mean, a list long as my arm, but those would be the three that I've certainly witnessed and seen and would not recommend.
Dustin.
Yeah, just a couple of points here. I think draw hard lines between professional and personal. Okay. Don't use like LinkedIn to try to land dates. That would be certainly unethical. There are other apps and other places for those types of things. In terms of creating genuine connections, I think you hit it spot on. I would say make sure you're examining your own intentions, right? Like look at yourself. Why am I trying to make these connections? Is it because I truly want genuine connections? Or is there some ulterior motive? If there is, just be careful there, right? And try to aim for genuine connections. I think people detect it. They're going to see right through it. Like, oh, you feels like you're just using me to reach someone else, or it feels like you're just using me as a lead, or whatever that is, right? And then I think if you do end up furthering the conversation into something like a lead, if you're in that area, if you're trying to, if you know, if you represent a company or whatever that is, it should be based on their interests and desires, right? Not yours to try to hit your numbers or whatever that is. Because again, I think people see right through that, right? They're like, oh, I feel like, I'm just a number to you as opposed to a genuine connection.
Yep, well said. Fleetus.
So Thea and Dustin and then Arnold most of it, but I'll reiterate a few of them just to drive it back home. I quickly tell people I'm not a vendor. When I'm asking you questions, it's because I'm intentionally wanting to understand why you work for the company you work for, why you enjoyed that role, why did you choose that role, why did you stay in that role, what is your pain points of that role? Because that is how I network. I want to understand for two reasons. Why do you choose a product? What do you wish you knew about a product? And what would you do different if I was to buy that product? So that's why when I come into networking or technical, I'm in a lot of leadership and managerial and CISO based groups to ask those questions. If I was to buy this EDR, what is my pain point? What does week one look like? What does year one look like? So it's that genuine of I'm asking you because I'm not trying to sell you the next EDR. I want to know if I should buy this EDR myself or recommend it to a client or a customer, et cetera. And then the other thing, don't use your security tools to do open source intel. Please don't ever do this. We had to sit a SOC analyst down who was more or less stalking a marketing person to get a date by looking at her web traffic. I mean, it happens. And I feel bad. We fixed the UL, we fixed the policies, we put more controls in place after this. But it opened the door to say there's a lot of data as a security professional that we have access to. Don't use it for personal gains, to Dustin's point. Don't come up and say, hey, oh, I saw your mom died this week. I just wanted to talk to you about it, unless they publicly said that. Unless you can reference something that's public about them. If it's something you've disclosed through open source intel or an internal feed that you just happened to read, or you were more or less just overhearing a conversation on the train or the airport. That's not how you go about talking to someone because you overheard a conversation or got it illegitimately. So the ethical piece goes into know why you're sharing the story. Where did you get the data? And is it public data that you're about to share, to Thea's point? Like, I don't want to know trade secrets. I don't want to know about a breach that you never disclosed. But even though I know about the breach because either I worked with you, worked for you, maybe I was the IR person who helped you with the breach. We just don't disclose data that's not public for multiple things, especially if you're a publicly traded company. Then it gets into like insider information. There's all this stuff that comes into the ethics piece of talking about things that never made mainstream news that you just have access to because of your network, because of what you do for a living, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Wow. That was a value-packed comment there, Fleetus. Theo.
Yeah, just one last comment is avoid sending, let's call them cold connections. So requesting without a little note or invitation message saying, why do you want to connect with this person? That would make the recipient more likely to accept your connection and understands what the relationship you're trying to build with them. Expect the same from the people who send you a request. When they send you a cold request to connect, reply with glad to connect with you. What is the purpose of this relationship, of your connection? And that also will help you understand their motives and intentions.
Actually, I have a comment about that too, Theo. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you're using LinkedIn on a mobile device, at least on an iPhone or that I use, you actually, it doesn't give you a chance, as far as I can tell, to put a note in with your connection request. So you might say, "Oh, I want to connect with this guy," and all of a sudden it says connection sent, right? Like I didn't get a chance to type anything in to make that note. So if you're doing it as Theo suggests, do it from a desktop where when you make that connection request, it'll say, "Do you want to add a note to it?" And that's where you get that opportunity. Good point. All right. Any other comments on question 2 about ethics? All right. So I'm just going to do a quick little share of a note to pay the bills. So as I said, ClickArmor sponsors the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum. It's a gamified learning platform that really helps engage people with foundational learning around cybersecurity. It's not just monthly phishing tests or things like that. We're actually teaching people how to interact in different types of scenarios, virtual inbox, as well as social scenarios, and just some fun puzzles and things to keep people engaged with the training. So if you want a better way to engage people, in addition to phishing tests, it can be very powerful. So just reach out if you want to have a chat about ClickArmor. So happy to discuss that. Our third question to the panel and anybody who wants to comment on it is, what strategies lead to building a sustainable network that benefits both your career and the security community? We've talked about a few things here, I think, in terms of how you get that warm introduction or at less than, not a cringy introduction at least, but to build a sustainable network, what does that mean to you guys? Anybody want to start that? Thea, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've only really got one comment on this because I have yet to successfully achieve this myself. So I don't think I should be up here telling people how to do it. But one thing that I found gives absolute dividends is connecting people with each other. So once you have some connections and then you connect those two people, they remember that you're the one that connected them. So you become this kind of glue and within their own connection, and then their connection and their connection, and so on. And also, I think when you do that with genuine, because you think, well, I genuinely think these people would get on, or they can bring value to each other. It's kind of a quick and introvert friendly way to do that, because they're the ones that are going to have the conversation mostly, and you're just kind of the glue between them. So yeah, that was a recommendation that I have.
Excellent. Fleetus.
Very similar. Give attestation where attestation's due. You probably heard me say on here and other places, if I heard a quote or a friend of mine or a peer of mine or even someone on this panel said it, I'm going to give them attestation as best I can. We do that in writing. We should do that when we're speaking. Like I give a good friend of mine all the time, Russell Eubanks, the quote that it stuck with me the longest time of being bilingual of speaking business and tech. It may not have come from him, but it was taught to me by him because of some of the panels I sat with him on. He may have stole it from somewhere else or reused it from somewhere else, but I will always quote back to where I first got something so that I'm not saying I'm ripping off comments, jokes, headlines, or taglines from the peer. Because to Thea's point, I want connections to know I found this from this person. Or Dustin shared this with me on this panel, on this sat at home with me. You should go follow Dustin. You should look at what Dustin has been doing on this. Or Thea's research has been helpful. Like I've passed a peer to Thea who was writing a paper so that they could interview Thea so that like she could add value to that. So Thea, I think you are adding value to this community. But that's where people got to remember is I'm just a pass through. I tell people all the time, I do reverse mentorship for that very reason. I'm an SME on something, you're an SME on something. No matter if you've been on the job 1 day or 40 years, your life experiences give value to the conversation. Your diversity, your background, whatever you've done, add to the conversation. And you're going to teach me something as much as I'm going to hopefully teach you, because I'm not trying to build a clone of Fleetus. You don't want clones of me running around for the next 40, 50 years. I do want to pass the torch to you, and that's how I want to sustain this network. I do want to retire one day, and I do want to stop the protect and defense that I do day in and day out. So the sustainability is passing the torch, building new people to come up behind you, and giving attestation where it's due.
Once again, great comments, Fleetus. Thanks very much. I think Dustin has his hand up.
I love those comments. Yeah. I think networking takes a lot of time, like to your survey that you shared, Scott. It takes time to keep connections alive, to keep that relationship going. Following up after you met someone at a conference, right? These things definitely take time. including taking the time, which is what I was sharing earlier, to find people that interest you too, right? So dedicating some time every day, every week, to just go on LinkedIn, see what people are doing, and then follow what is truly piquing your interest. I think that that's really important, especially if you want to build genuine connections, right? Because then when you do reach out to them, it's because you genuinely appreciate what they're putting out there. I think that's important. I also think from a mindset perspective, building relationships based on that interest, but you're not sure where they're going to go is an important approach too, right? So sort of keeping an open mind, like I was saying earlier, keep it organic. Don't necessarily reach out because you already have something in mind that you think that they should do, as opposed to just exploring, right, where the conversation and the relationship goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to just comment on that because it reminds me of some other things that I've learned. And that is, there's actually a book called Dig Your Well Before You Need the Water or something like that, right? Or before you're thirsty. It's really about starting the process sooner rather than later, just so that when you do perhaps need something, and you're going to need things at various times from people, it's not out of the blue, right? And so there is this part about not only starting the relationship on a positive, not stressful note, but you can actually aim, even though you may not have an immediate need, and you can imagine how you can help each other in the future. And it's not creepy at all to set up reminders for yourself every 3 months or 6 months to go and just reach out to people in your network and see how they're doing and see if there's anything you can do to help them. And if you don't have time to, put labor into helping them, you can at least offer to make connections for people. And that's one of the things that I find makes it easy just to keep that sustained relationship going. Theo.
I'll go next. I thought Mitchell was
Oh,
first,
maybe I
but
got it all mixed up.
that's all right. So don't let connections go cold. Okay. And this is something that I learned from a friend of mine who is not in IT or cybersecurity, but is great at creating connections at both the professional and personal side. When you meet someone new, write a little note about them, either in your contacts or message them on LinkedIn, so you remember what this connection is about, what project they're working on. So next time you engage with them, you have a meaningful conversation with them. And that helps you create credibility that you were actually listening at the moment you had the conversation. Because you could connect with someone today, you could see them next year at the same conference, but you may not remember what you were working on or anything about them. So keeping those notes could help you maintain those relationships and sustain them for a long term.
Yep, for sure. Mitch.
Yeah, I think along the lines of what Theo just said, but then there's also the reciprocity, right? And there's the flip side of it. So you've established this, right? We met at a conference, we've talked, we've had a conversation. Um, but then you go back to home base and you're trying to continue to manifest this relationship. Um, you you've got to make sure that they want to also continue and manifest that relationship, right? That collaboration that you had one place may not continue, and you have to be able to acknowledge or recognize it and move on. Just like any friendship or collaboration that you're going to work with, right? Where you put your energy is where you're getting that same type of energy back. So that I think that's going to be very important as well when you're doing your networking.
Awesome. Great points, guys. I'm going to now share the poll results. So let me see if I can find my share button. There we are.
While you're sharing that, I want to echo something that I do
Yeah.
personally, similar to what Theo said. So I don't delete my text messages for that very reason. So I know where I left the conversation with a personal friend or a colleague, or even in this case, a loved one. I can look back and read the thread to see, okay, if I talked to them last month, what were they dealing with? What was we talking about? If it was last week, what was we dealing with? So when he mentioned LinkedIn, reread your LinkedIn thread. See if it's one-sided or two-sided. If it's really one-sided, maybe you don't re-engage other than just saying happy birthday or hello. But if it's been a thread, reiterate, how'd that project finish? Did you get that promotion? How did it go to lay off that employee? Because maybe they were struggling with how they're going to do a reduction in force. So making it personal again when you reach back out, because as a hiring manager and as a security leader, we have two different aspects of our job. the people side and then the technical side. And both will drain you, some more than others at certain points. So having someone ask me about how my leadership stuff is going is just as important of asking how my technical deliverable went.
Awesome. That's very cool. All right, so we're gonna just do a little wrap up of the poll, and I just noticed I made a typo, but I think most people figured it out. And the first question: how comfortable do you feel initiating professional network conversations? From very comfortable, somewhat uncomfortable. Oh, I've got actually probably nobody figured this one out. I don't know what this means. Very comfortable, somewhat uncomfortable, neutral, somewhat uncomfortable, very comfortable. Didn't give a lot of space in here for some of the options, so I'm not sure if this is indicative of anything. So does anybody have any interpretations based on my typos in the actual options? Not a great
I
question
would
in
just
terms of,
say to your point that there is a level of uncomfort that everybody's experiencing at some
yeah,
point.
either somebody is extremely uncomfortable or extremely comfortable. Yeah, there's not a lot of middle ground. So that's the way I would look at it, I guess. But let's see if we can get some better data from my other questions. So which networking tools do you primarily use? So most people use LinkedIn. The next best is in person. So that speaks to the idea that there's probably either a lot of local conferencing and networking going on, or people are traveling for big conferences pretty regularly. And I doubt it's the latter. So, but that's
I'd be curious, did people include, and they can put in the chat, in-person Zoom or Teams? Because today that's in person to a lot of people.
yeah,
If I
person to
physically get
person.
on a
Yeah,
video
yeah.
call and talk with you, that's considered in person to them. We had an in-person gathering day. It was all virtual, but to them it was in person because everyone turned on their camera, everyone had a conversation, they broke bread over a Teams meeting, had a happy hour, etc. So I would be curious if people would put in person as part of that in their chat.
Yeah, Greg says his interpretation is video calls are in person. So I take that, and it's just because I'm old and legacy, too much influence from the past. But yeah, that's a good interpretation. How often do you actively engage? I think I might have got the question right here. So most people say daily or weekly. Um, some say monthly, others say rarely. So I think that's healthy, that we're getting lots of people doing it, even though they may be feeling uncomfortable about it. Um, and how many connections do you have? Just not that numbers are important. I just want to get an idea roughly in terms of the maturity. So we have between 100 and 500, well, a couple of people, between 500 and 1,000, a couple of people, between 1,000 and 5,000, a couple of people, and then some with more than 5,000. So that's great. Those are, the people we hope will be fostering more networking discussions. And something I wanted to actually bring up a little bit more on this call, but we didn't talk about. Maybe we can talk about it for a minute after the polls. But that was mentoring. Can you use networking to find a mentor or to find someone that you'd like to help? So, have you ever experienced negative consequences from being overly aggressive in networking behavior? And this is, on the honor system. We're hoping people are honest about this, but half of us say never. A few say rarely, and more than I expected, a couple of people. So, if you wanted to chat about, why that's happening, feel free to reach out to me or probably any of the people on the panel that you feel comfortable reaching out to. We could all, just chat for a bit about what you might be doing that could be causing you to be getting that negative experience.
So
Love to.
I would like to personally share one here just for transparency, where this
Sure.
has happened to me. I was working on a 1099 engagement. I was trying to get a larger presence with this organization. The person who was my point of contact was not very happy the fact that I was networking with people around them. They took it kind of personal, the fact that I was reaching out and having ongoing conversations with individuals that would eventually be more of my day-to-day leads and point of contacts. So I got shut down and exited that contract because the person felt either threatened or I didn't wasn't clear enough with them of my intentions of why I was building that professional network. Yes, it was twofold for me. I wanted to keep them in my personal network because I valued their professionalness. But in the back of my mind, I needed them to know who I was. So when the day come to vote to keep me, they could keep me. And for those who want to know more, I can share offline. I just don't want to go too deep. If I share more details, you'll figure out who the organization is. And I don't want a negative connotation of that organization for anyone who still either works with them or utilizes their services. So
Yeah,
it can
yeah,
happen inadvertently, but it can also happen because you're just not paying attention to the politics of the organization and you cannot circumvent chain of command when you're
yeah.
having conversations.
And it can happen anyway. I've had not exactly the same experience, but I have had a situation where if I had thought a little bit more ahead of it, I might have been able to avoid a bit of political confrontation that way as well. So really good, relevant point. And we just take it as a lesson learned, right? I mean, if the relationship is damaged, then sometimes it's worth trying to repair it, but other times there may not be an opportunity. So, um, what are usually your primary goals when you're actively networking? So most people are saying career development and job hunting, learning and mentoring, and then sales. So that's good. I mean, I think in cybersecurity, most of us are trying to learn and improve our careers and help the industry. So I can understand that. There are certainly salespeople in the cybersecurity world as well who, can be aggressive as well. And I think the most successful ones are the ones who do a lot of the things we've been talking about, where they start early, they're genuine, they're helpful before they actually ask for anything, and that usually is the way things will unfold. So I think that's the last question. So I'm just going to wrap up a little bit here, go back to our final slides, and I'll give the panelists the chance to do a little bit of a round table. But I'd like to ask the attendees to reflect on a few questions. What would you do differently as a result of this session? Are you thinking you could reach out to somebody for information or help or just to make a connection? Do you want to try a different approach to how you're doing networking? Or do you want to take away some of this information and just think about it? So love to hear how people got anything out of this session. And with that, I'll just do a quick roundtable with everybody. Start with Fleetus.
So I'll take Monica's question real quick. She was asking if it's okay to reach out to someone on LinkedIn because you're interested in an open role, and should you feel bad or would they feel bad about being reached out to a specific reason? So I responded my standard answer for cyber, it depends. Are you planning to stay in contact with this person or are you just using them for the next step? I have reached out to my connections at companies that I may not have kept warm. Just say, hey, I'm still interested. For those who don't know, I was part of a reduction force over the summer. So I did some of what Monica is reaching out here. I started going out to the companies I wanted to work for and started pinging some of the contacts that I had or DMs, whatever term we're using in 2025, to say, hey, do you have a role? Do you know of a role? Do you have a hiring manager I can speak with? Knowing that some of them are going to not reply to me. I may lose that connection in the future, but I was willing to take that as a risk because I was very interested in those organizations and I wanted to work for them. And I had some relationship with them before. It may have just been, hey, you attended one of my podcasts, you attended one of my talks, I met you at a conference, so we didn't have a deep connection, but I used it that way. So it really just depends on the person. I will say I get hit up all the time asking from salespeople and others, hey, can you help me find a job? For those who haven't been around here, I do a lot of mentorship and I do a lot of mass mentorship. So if you ever followed my LinkedIn or my YouTube, you'll see this. Um, so people feel comfortable and I don't take offense to it because that's kind of why I'm doing that. I can't do one-on-one for 1,000 people, but I can do mass mentorship for 10,000 people by putting similar topics that I'm hearing day in, day out and putting content out that's going to answer that question or questions. So when they do DM or send me a message, hopefully they've read that comment, watched that video, or dwelled on that food for thought for those who know long enough to ponder it before they reached out.
Yeah. And I think, as well as we said before, most people in this industry are wanting to help. And you will sometimes reach out to people thinking it's an innocent, genuine request, and they're going to be offended for some reason you didn't realize. And in that case, if in your heart you know that you did it authentically, don't be too upset about somebody's comment. If what they said makes sense and you think maybe you could change your behavior, that's fine. But don't let it suck all your energy out from taking another chance at reaching out to people. So that's all I would say. Um, and with that, final slide will just be to let people know about the CSAF community website. We post all of our notices of the upcoming meetings and our video recordings there as well. And we had a session, a space set up in here called Careers, but I've changed it to Networking and Careers. So if people do want to reach out to each other, don't be too afraid. You go in there, you expect people are going to be posting resumes and information, maybe not too much information, but what you're looking for. And if you're also offering, to find somebody to mentor, please have a look in there as well. And we'd appreciate people being able to help there. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up, unless any of the panel have any last questions going once.
I have
Yes,
one
Thea.
comment that I just want to say because I think it was Dustin said something to me that as an introvert who has anxiety, I found very useful, and that was keeping the other person in mind. And that's not necessarily because I'm thinking about myself, but I'm often very focused on how anxious I am or how the interaction's going to go, and actually just focusing on the other person. So that's something I'm going to try, but I imagine from a psychological perspective, that's probably super useful if you have anxiety.
Yeah, great. I'm glad that was helpful. So excellent.
And to that point too, don't give up. If one door shuts, there's another door. Don't get defeated. I know that Mitchell made a comment that he's had some negative experience, so don't give up, Mitchell. I mean, someone put in the chat, we're all friends. We're all family at the end of the day. I mean, you're going to find a bad apple in every organization. Don't let that one bad apple ruin your networking opportunities and your willingness to continue to connect with certain organizations. Again, I'm looking in the mirror right now, in this case, the camera, because I've had that happen where that bad apple did sour my conversation with a meetup group for a little while. I didn't feel comfortable going back because I knew that bad apple would still be there because
Mhm.
they were in a leadership role with that group, and I had a bad experience. But at the end of the day, I'm there not for that leader. I'm there for my network, for the peers I've made, for the people I'm mentoring, and just for that support system and community at the end of the day. So again, we're going into the holidays. You may have family members of the same way. Don't let them ruin your Thanksgiving. Find the joy, find some way to be thankful.
Well said, Fleetus. And thanks to the panel. Thanks everybody for the great chat. And hope you did get something out of this session. And if it's a holiday for you coming up, have a great, safe weekend. And I don't have a session scheduled yet, but look for it in our LinkedIn and on the forum. So until next time, just follow my guidance that engaged employees reduce risks and keep networking. We'll talk to you later.